everybody for our February meeting of our Youth Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. And I believe that the protocols will be shown on the screen. No? Okay.
Oh,
I know
you can just read them.
The protocols.
You can just read them.
I don't have them in front of me, but
oh, no problem.
In the past, you've put it there very well. So, yeah. So I'm going to introduce the committee, starting with our co-chair and secretary will introduce themselves, and then I'll ask our members to introduce themselves. And since we're not around a table, maybe alphabetically by first name, and we'll see how that goes. But let's start with our co-chair and secretary first.
Hello, it's Dorothea Thompson Manning, and I'm the co-chair of Youth Education and Cultural Affairs and a board member. That's it. Is that enough? That's all you want?
Yeah. Perfect. And we have Meredith, who's still muted. There's Meredith.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meredith Phillips Almeida. I'm the committee secretary and a member of the board.
Welcome. Okay.
Am I next? I can't see who's here.
Yes, you're next.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Nick Ferreira, a committee and board member.
Welcome. Oscar?
Yes, I think I'm next. Hi, I'm Oscar Luckett, committee and board member as well. And
welcome. Yeah.
my last one is.
Hi.
Oh, Samantha. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
I think our Dr. Santi's on. He'll be interested to know that you're a youth member as well. You're a high school student, soon to graduate. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
sorry, Samantha, I didn't see you there. I'll pass it to you.
And I see that Alec has joined. Alec, can you introduce yourself? Alec. Hi, Alec. Please unmute and then introduce. Okay.
I am Alec Duffy. I'm a public member of the committee.
Welcome. And I think we have Santia.
I think it's Sam Johnson. I don't think it's Santia. I think I saw Sam's name.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Sam Johnson. I am committee member as well as a board member.
Welcome. And do we have Santia?
No.
Okay, maybe she'll join us later. Okay, so you received the agenda by
Cynthia
email.
just joined.
Excuse me?
Cynthia just joined.
Okay, welcome. Cynthia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, I'm having issues. My name is Santia Policia. I'm a community board member and committee member.
Welcome. I know so many of us are having issues, and I was going to announce later, but I could tell you guys now if you don't already know. In March, we're going to be having Zoom, so it'll be a much more friendly platform, and we're very excited. Okay, are there any questions or amendments or changes to the agenda, or can we agree to it by consensus? Hearing no objections, the agenda is approved. And we received the minutes, excellent as always, from January meeting. Are there any changes or suggestions for the minutes? Hearing none, I believe we can accept the minutes by consensus. If someone has small corrections like grammar or things of that nature, you can send it to the office, but minutes looked good. Okay, so thank you all. So for the presentation, I want to give you a little background. Last year, for everyone who was on the committee, many of you remember we heard from a transfer school. We heard from Brooklyn Frontiers, which is on Skirmahorn Street. So we got a feel for what a transfer school is like. We also heard from a staff person in Dr. Lucenti's superintendency about transfer programs, alternative programs, and other programs for students who needed that additional support. So we heard about programs and number of students served. And this year I started reading about there's a citywide task force on disengaged youth. It's also known as out of school, out of work young people. So I think they can be between 16 and 24 to be in that category. And I was thinking it would be great to have a presentation from someone on that task force. So like a high level person who's on the task force, who's talking policy with people across the different silos, Department of Justice, nonprofits, he'll tell you more. But it's a very robust group that are talking, how can the city come together to help these young people as opposed to everyone in their particular silo doing what they do. So I'm absolutely so delighted to introduce Dr. Lasante, who's apparently responsible for 85 principals, for alternative schools, for schools in Rikers, for schools that have English language learners, newcomers, and so many more. So Dr. Lasante, please join us. I don't see his picture here.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh. but
Okay.
don't
Yeah. I
see you.
stopped.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's
All
okay.
right.
Okay. And so basically, we want to hear your presentation, and then members of our committee will ask you questions, and then sometimes, if there's time, others ask questions, and so on. So that's how it'll go. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm going to try to pull up my PowerPoint.
Yes.
Great. So again, this first slide shows the access schools. If you take a look at it's pretty comprehensive. And I just wanted to give you an overview. I have my email on this screen. So if you have any questions after this meeting, you can always contact me directly and I could connect you to whatever program you're most interested in. So let me go to the slideshow. Start slide. So again, we always start with our major goal, which is to engage students and in many times re-engage students. And we're always talking to the communities about anybody who has not completed the high school diploma is welcome back at any age, because we have young adults and we have adults of all ages coming back for the high school equivalency. And so we engage the students, empower them through the acquisition of skills, and then have them excel in their dreams and their aspirations. And this is our vision. It's very simple. We want 100% graduates and zero dropouts, no dropouts. So that's our focus. So we're made up of 3 big superintendencies. I'll go left from right here. Superintendent Alan Chang has 48 schools with partners in the consortium, international schools, these are newcomers, and they have partnerships with New York City outward bound schools. So we're not going to talk too much about them tonight. These are schools students apply to out of 8th grade. Some of them are 6 to 12s. But in the middle are transfer schools. We'll talk about that. 42 transfer schools. These are schools that students start out in one high school and for various reasons transfer into usually a smaller school, the transfer schools throughout New York City. And then to the right is District 79, which is a whole lot of different programs that we'll go over a lot of them in the next couple of minutes. And you all asked for some ways that you could support us through advocacy and policy. So I came up with 6 in this little PowerPoint for tonight that maybe you can help us with as we go through this. First thing we always start with is we have the LIFE program, which is for infants and toddlers of student parents.
Dr. Lasante?
Yeah.
Your slides do not appear to be advancing. We're still on the first slide.
I wonder why that is.
If the slideshow isn't working, you could just click on the slides on the left in the menu.
All right. How do I get out of escape?
Just from right where you are, go ahead. There. Okay, so now we can see slide number 2. That's good.
I'm sorry, I get to see this again. This is the screen I was talking about before. But again, I'll send you a copy of this so you can have it. So now I want to start with the programs. We always start with the youngest programs. And support over 600 student parents. These are all student parents graduating. So we take students in at 3 weeks to 4 years old. And this is the first policy thing you may be able to help us with, is we need to increase programs for infants in the days they're alive. Again, I think New York City was late to pre-K, and certainly America is late compared to other countries and when we start our youngest learners. So that's one of the things we always start with, is hopefully what this will do is have students be more ready for school, work out some of the special needs. So maybe fewer students will be classified as special ed as they enter the school system. So our first policy issue we'd really like to see is focus more programs for the infants, like I said, even way before 3 years old and 4 years old. The second program I want to tell you about is Restart Academy. This is primarily where we integrate teachers into CBOs and into high school. Restart isn't a building. It's a series of programs in community-based organizations. As you see there, unaccompanied youth, those are youngsters who come from different countries without sponsors. We are in mental health facilities, emotional health, substance abuse intervention sites, and foster care group homes after school. And the one I want to focus on here, that's the principal there. And I don't know if you were around in the 80s when the homelessness situation was really bad, and we, District 79, sent teachers into homeless shelters back in the 80s under Mayor Koch, and the principal started her career in one of those family shelters. Now she's the principal. But the one I want to focus on is the top one. If you can see there, alternative middle schools. We have a program called 9 by 9 that's funded through the Young Men's Initiative. And this is for overage middle school students to get them back on track. And again, we're trying to squeeze the numbers. Why are there so many overage middle school students? So that's our second, is to reduce the number of overage middle school students. How do we do that? We've got to look at the retention policies, leaving students back, right? The promotion policies. At one time, there's a whole lot of overage students, and that's been lowered over the years, proud to say. But one of the things we really need is a strong DOE ACS interagency relationship. One of the reasons principals have told me that students get left back in grammar school, elementary school, is because of attendance. Not a third grader's fault if there's an attendance problem, right? If it's a health issue, we should be giving services in the home. And if they're having trouble getting to school, we should make arrangements to get the kids to school and to support the families in getting their children to the school. So again, we're trying to squeeze the number of overage middle school kids so there's fewer overage high schoolers that we're going to talk about in a second. So that's our second ask, is really to look at the promotion policies. And I believe there should be somebody who works for the DOE half-time and 1 foot into the ACS and be the liaison between these two big agencies. Second thing that we're doing on this one is looking at more 6 to 12s and K-8 options. I think they should be in all communities. I think parents should have options depending on the maturity of their children. Like my oldest son could have jumped into sixth grade, 6 to 12, no problem. My second son needed those 2 extra years of a K-8. So I think we should look at all communities, make sure parents have options into different configurations as to, again, that transition into middle school and transition out of middle school is so important. And that's where the breakdown occurs. And you don't hear this much about ESSA, but there is a part in there that's called high school readiness. And this is something that we really want to work on again. We're trying to reduce the number of students that ever get to high school that are overaged and unaccredited. So I'm really eager to work with the state ed department once they get around to really honing in on the high school readiness. And the fourth thing, this is Passage Academy. This is student. If you're 18 and below, 17 and below now, you go to Passages Academy. That's the principal there. It's a collaboration. We're in ACS facilities. We also have a liaison for our district in every family court. And what they do is they advocate with the judges and probation not to lock students up, but to release them, and we'll help them in schools, get them transferred into other schools, keep an eye on them rather than have them be in lockup. There was a project a couple of years ago close to home that we kind of led, the educational piece, and the U.S. Department of Education asked us to do a national webinar on the success of that program. But at the bottom there, you see the statistics, right? The 64% of the students have an IEP, 64%. And 48% of those have emotional behavior disorders. That's the #1 category to drop out of high school, and it's the #1 category to be arrested. So it's a educational issue. It's a issue. And one little thing, I think it's a big thing, is that we still refer to our students here in New York disturbance, emotionally disturbed, right? 25 states have already changed that to emotional disability. So we'd like you to advocate with us. We get some parents involved and have New York State Education change it. I don't know if you're familiar with so much with special ed, but we used to refer to students as mentally retarded. And then 2010, under President Obama and Arnie Duncan, they changed it nationally to intellectual disabilities. But with this one, they left it up to the states. And like I said, half the states have changed it, but we're slow to the game. So that's one of the things that we're working with state ed in getting this changed. It may sound like a little thing, but it's a big thing to parents and to their obviously to their children, not to be referred to as emotionally disturbed. So that's one of our asks. Maybe you could help us advocate for. That's the fourth one. This is on Rikers now. We have a school. It's our principal. She's been out there 25 years doing great work in social justice. So a student who was arrested was 18 or older. We serve out on Rikers Island, and that's their graduation. And another thing you may be able to help us with, we have the 51 transfer schools. We have more transfer schools, right, than high schools in places like Philadelphia and Boston and other big cities. Why do we have a need for so many transfer high schools? Meaning that these are students, like I said before, who started somewhere else and transferred into one of our schools. So we're proud of the schools, but what we want to do is reduce the numbers that need them, right? So these are some of the attributes of a transfer school. You can see here the different things that we do in those schools. And our fifth request is to support the Regents exam reduction. This is something, we talk about all the time, is in big cities like Los Angeles and Chicago, the students don't have to pass any exit exam, 0. Here we have 5. We have 5 Regents exams. Why are our kids held to this standard, whereas the rest of the country basically does not have the same rigorous. So again, this is something that the Regents is looking at. They have a blue ribbon committee, and they're making the move now to vote on this, and we think it's a good idea that we should support the reduction of Regents exams. That's our fifth ask. I want to share with you, we have robust evening schools, and what we these are the students finished up tonight in our YABCs. And we have a huge network of high school equivalency throughout the city. And we take in older multi-language learners come to this country at 19 and 20. They're too old for a high school diploma. So they work for a high school equivalency diploma. And usually Access will take in students from over 100 different countries every year into our program. So it's a big multilingual population in the high school equivalency. And in adult ed, which is the next piece I want to share with you, that adult ed has certification courses such as these that I'm showing you now: medical billing, ESL, high school equivalency. This is Lena, who I met 72 years old, and she says, I just want to get my high school diploma before I die. These are some current, during the pandemic, these students here passed their exams to become certified nurses assistants. They got jobs right away in the locations that they did their clinical practice. Also, adults got contact tracing certifications during this pandemic and got right to work at $25 an hour employment. So our last ask from you all is to spread the word about adult education. What better way to empower families than through education, both in English and in high school equivalency and in career and technical education. And I just want to end by showing you some of the career and technical education programs we have. Co-op Tech is our flagship school in East Harlem. As you can see there, everybody gets an industry certification. The course ends in an industry certification. We take postgraduates and adults, which means that a student may graduate from high school not sure what he or she wants to do, and they can go to Co-op Tech for a year and pick up a trade and figure things out and maybe go to college afterwards. They have great partnerships, as you see there, with Con Ed, the Parks Department, Port Authority, and others, DCAS, and all the rest. They've been a leader in non-traditional employment for women for many years at Co-op Tech. And we're really proud of this, is that over $500,000 you see there were earned by student internships in a year. I'm also proud of the fact that 49% of these students that you see here graduating from Co-op Tech are students with a disability. And then in that school, we have the Judith K. High School, which is upstairs. So students take their academics upstairs for the high school diploma, and they can go downstairs for Co-op Tech courses. And I just want to share with you again, these are some of the internships that our students did, paid internships. They make $10 an hour. They're actually employees of the DOE. Then I just want to end by talking about the multi-language learners, how big it is in our throughout the Access schools. And again, ending with the high school equivalency citywide. One of the things I always stress in this, and I know I'm going really fast, but in every borough we have a college campus that we have a high school equivalency program. We have 7 CUNY partnerships. So a lot of times parents want the high school diploma because they want their children to go to college. But if they go to one of these campuses, they get direct admissions right into the campus that they're on. So, but there's some students like below who don't want to go to college. We have a partnership with Youth Build and others that lead to careers. And we're also in places like Harvey Milk and Covenant House, homeless. We have evening programs. So there's lots of opportunities to get a high school diploma, high school equivalency diploma. And again, we end with these pictures. Everything's about the graduation and celebrating 100% graduates, 0% dropouts. Is Betty Rosa. She came to our graduation last year. And in this PowerPoint, and it's a little hard to see here, is how to get into any of the programs that I just described it. So I'll send you this PowerPoint, and you can either use this, or like I said, you can contact me with any questions about the access schools. So I went fast and a lot of stuff there. So I think if there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much. So first, I will open this up to our committee members for questions for Dr. Lasanti.
This is Dorothea. I have two questions. One has to do with the overage middle school students. What ages are we talking about? What age are these children that are older than they should be? About what is there like a cluster? Most of them 14, 15, 16. How does that
Yeah,
work?
a lot of them are 1 year behind. Several are 2 years behind. A lot of it was based on mobility and lack of going to school. So what we offer are the high school programs that we have are located in high school buildings. Like we're in Beach Channel High School, for example, and there's a bunch of programs in Beach Channel. Nobody even knows that the students are technically in 8th grade. Because many of the students were embarrassed that were the oldest students in their 8th grade. That's why they stopped going there. So we offer them this opportunity to go to 8th grade, basically in a high school setting. And this way there's an easy transfer into one of the high schools in a place like Beach Channel or August Martin and the other places that we're at. So there's a relationship with the high schools in that building. So basically it's a 1 year behind and some are 2 years behind. The good news is we're seeing fewer and fewer of those students because I think fewer students are getting retained and left back than in the past. So that's the good news on that side. But again, we want to keep shrinking that population and get it down to, again, where every student gets promoted every year and keeps progressing towards their ultimate goal of high school graduation.
So these students are together, the ones that are overage. They would all be they were all in middle school, but they might be 15 and 16, and they're in classes just for them. Is that how it works? But it's still middle school.
Yeah. So they're kind of in self-contained classes within a high school setting.
Okay.
Some students progress very rapidly, and then they go to high school in the next trimester and next semester. Some need a whole year to get caught up. And then we also have alternative schools that are built for overage 9th graders. So they're, again, not the oldest 9th grader in their high school setting. So we try to have different options based on age.
I have one other question because I want to leave it over to somebody else. I was unsure what you were referring to when you said the classes 6 to 12 and K through 8. What were you exactly trying to say about that? I heard you say something about you felt your son could skip something. What does that mean exactly?
Basically what it means is the 6 to 12s we have, right, are great for the students that we're just talking about because they can easily, they're in the same building, they can easily, get promoted once they achieve the work. The transition into high school and then 2 years middle school, then 2 years later have to transition to another school. It's too many interruptions, right? So if you go to a 6 to 12, there's only one transition, right, into 6th grade, and then that's it. You stay in that school until you graduate. Same thing with a K to 8. You transition at 8th grade, you go into 9th grade, rather than have that transition into middle school and out of middle school. So I'm a big believer in 6 to 12s. We have several of them in Access. Where I met with all the principals one day on a Zoom call, and they all like the model of 6 to 12 because of this, like I said, the lack of those transitions into middle school and then again out of school, middle school the next So that's what we meant by that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from committee members, please? Do we see any? Let's see on the other panel here. No. Okay, so I see Mr. Flanoy somewhere. He's a member of our community board and chair of economic development. Did you have a question, Mr. Flanoy?
As of right now, no, I do not. Currently, right now, it's just listening in. The only question I would possibly have is how many of these schools are available and what's the criteria to getting in?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, let me go to this slide. So again, the ones on the left, those are ones that students apply to out of 8th grade, the consortium schools. International schools, again, they take a lot of transfers when students come into the country as 10th graders, 11th graders. So those schools are and outward bound schools tend to be kind of small and a little bit harder to get into. Transfer schools are easy to get into because there's 42 of them. And if there's not room at one, like we're in every borough, so those are easy to get into. And then the programs, again, are kind of like the last step. So again, the good news about District 79 and transfer schools is they have what we call a rolling register. You know, students sometimes want to shift pathways, and we don't want to say to them, well, come back in February or come back in September, because we lose them. So we accept students on an ongoing basis. So it's really easy to get into because we want to welcome those students in. And one of the things we're very proud of is we're very welcoming of students with disabilities. Some of our schools have over 30% of their students with an IEP, much higher than the city average. And then, of course, we have a lot of schools for multi-language learners.
Is there a wait list to get into your schools?
No. Again, the neat thing is the District 79 principals are all multi-sided principals, meaning they have sometimes 10, 15 different sites. So sometimes you can't get into maybe the first choice, especially like in a place like Co-op Tech where we talk about the trades, right? Sometimes there's a waiting list for something like welding, and some of those programs are harder to get into. So what we do is we get students into their second choice, and then the next semester we put them on a waiting list for the welding class, or culinary arts is another one that, and auto mechanics and things like that sometimes have a waiting list.
Do you have a catchment that students have to be maintained within, or can they move throughout the city, New York City?
Yeah, we're citywide. We're in every borough, and then we try to really look at maps and make sure that we have every community covered when we open up new programs, because we don't really want students to have to travel far from their homes to go to school. You know, we want to have great schools in every community. So we're citywide with all these programs. It's hard for us, again, you know, like my counterparts in Queens South or Brooklyn South, they can go really deep into those communities, right? Into those elected officials and families. Being citywide, we're kind of stretched all over the place. But again, I think we have really good relationships with families and communities throughout the city.
Let's talk funding.
Yep.
Okay, where's your funding coming from, and how are you doing with funding?
The transfer schools and the consortium schools are all funded through the fair funding formula. We're in pretty good shape. What we're worried about this year is we didn't make our register estimate in October. So they're working that out now. I don't think we're going to get penalized for it now, but obviously we couldn't recruit kids for the transfer schools, so they didn't make their numbers. The good news is District 79 to the right is like District 75, which is for students with disabilities. It's a needs assessment district. So we have flexibility there because we service students from all over the city. Like Co-op Tech, all these students go for their academics in a whole bunch of different schools, and they come up there for the CTE training, right? The infants and toddlers and life programs, their parents are from all different schools throughout New York City. So we're really there to support students in different ways. So the good news is we get it's based on need. So how many students are in District 79? So we have flexibility there with funding. So we're pretty good now. I'm really worried about September. So we're aggressively going after some grants and some supplemental sources of funding to make up for any register loss that we may take in the fall semester.
I'm curious because you're mentioning the shortfall as far as registration. Would this have anything to do with the situation right now with COVID? I mean, I would assume they would give you a pass because of that.
Yeah, that's it. Right now, they haven't decided exactly on the pass, but it's looking good. We've raised this issue from, we knew this was going to happen in May, that because we recruit, right, really at the end of the school year, right? May and June, students transfer into our schools for September. We couldn't do that. And again, I think the city is working with the state, so we're not going to take a big hit, but we really will have, I think, have to really do a lot of once we're back full time and hopefully out of this pandemic, say in September, really get our numbers back up to what they were previous to the pandemic.
I don't want to embarrass you, but just out of curiosity, what were the numbers for this year as opposed to last year?
I would say, you know, it varies from place to place, but I think the transfer schools is where we took the biggest hit, that middle group of schools. And I would say we're probably 10 or 15% below the enrollment that we had in a normal year. So one of the things that we really are working at is to get everybody who's on register to graduate. Again, that's our biggest goal, obviously, in high schools. We don't want to take a huge dip in that. I think, interesting enough, you know, we give the high school equivalency exam every month here in New York City. So the numbers there are pretty steady. I think we're going to have about the same number of graduates remotely than we did last year as far as high school equivalency. But as far as high school diplomas, really concerned about the transfer school number being under, but I expect it to be about 10% less graduates than the year before, which is really bad because we had really good momentum over the last several years. As you know, the graduation rate kept going up and up, and the dropout rate going down and down. We were making steady progress, and that progress was due, you know, to a lot of schools like these here that hold on to students. A lot of the students are older, 19, 20 years old. We don't give up on students at any age, unlike the rest of the state, to be honest with you. Most places in New York State, you get a high school diploma or you get your GED. That's it. There's no such thing as transfer schools. There's no such thing as 19-year-olds still working on their high school diploma as we do here in New York. So again, I'm optimistic, but we can't wait, obviously, for this pandemic to end. And we're really eager to have in-person classes back in the high schools. The middle schools, you know, are starting up tomorrow with students coming back to the middle schools, and hopefully the high schools will follow closely behind. But we're ready whenever they give us the green light to go back.
Madam Chairman, may I ask one more question, and I'll let.
One more question, because I want to give my members also a chance, but yes, one more question.
I'm sorry. Okay, finally, if you notice, and I'm sure Madam Chair will also agree with me, a lot of students were not able to do remote learning, okay, especially the seniors, and they're now in a position where they cannot graduate because of that. Is there anything that you have in place that could possibly help these seniors out, say over the summer or next year?
Yeah, it's a great question, because one of the big things we're doing in Access, and we started planning already, is to have a real robust summer program. What we want to do is to have hubs in every borough and really get students through so they can graduate in August. So again, I think the summer school is going to look a lot different this year. We already started planning that. Again, in the past, we do have a lot of August graduates, especially with the regions. But now that the regions are waived, I think that's a great point that you made. That one of the things that we're really looking at is a robust summer program. And the other thing that we always encourage, sometimes students only need, 3, 4, 5 credits, whatever it is. And what they can do is they round up their day at Co-op Tech, so they can actually, if they only need, say, 4 credits, they can do that in the morning, right? And then in the afternoon, go to Co-op Tech for a trade, and then walk away with a high school diploma in January and semester's worth of career technical education. So again, we got some good things planned for especially for the summer and for the fall semesters.
Thank you.
very much. Okay, I'll
I
turn the
want to
meeting back
ask,
over.
well, Mr. Flanoy is still there because it's related to his committee as well. The CTE programs, are they under your superintendency or are they in the regular high school
Yeah,
superintendent?
they're in the regular superintendencies. The only one that we have is Co-op Tech, which is a really unique model.
Right.
It's based on a BOCES model outside of New York, where students, like I said, go to their school, say in the morning for academics, if you will, and then they go for the trade in the afternoon. So in the morning, you have may have 400 on a regular school year, 400 students in different trades, and then they go to their schools in the afternoon, and a whole nother group comes in. So the teachers, for example, will teach one trade in the morning to one group, and another group for the same trade in the afternoon. So Co-op Tech is under us, but that's the only CTE school that's under us.
Thank you. When our committee could visit schools, when we were not little squares in Zoom applications, we visited Westinghouse. We saw some of their culinary programs and pre-engineering and so on. We also went to the Navy Yard for their special programs. But do you know of any similar programs to that in our district, which is basically downtown Brooklyn, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill?
Yeah, again, I love the Brooklyn Navy Yard. This theme that's very similar to Co-op Tech, where students, again, I keep saying academics. They do the academics in one school, but they go for the trades to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Yeah, that one of the things we made a proposal to have a Co-op Tech. Like I said, it's in East Harlem. Well, we really want one in Brooklyn. That's easier for Brooklyn and Queens students to get to. What we have found, though,
who can we advocate for that? I'm sure our committees would be very interested. Where is that? Is that with the borough president, with the electeds? That's something.
Yeah, I talked to Councilman Traeger about it. He supports it as long as it's in Brooklyn. I wanted something accessible, like to the subway line, so it's easy to get to. Because right now, Co-op Tech has 21 different trades under one roof. It's a really cool model, right? And kids do travel. We get students from Rockaway and Jamaica, Staten Island. Then they come up there. But again, I think it'd be better if we had one in Brooklyn that it was, like I said, easy to get to from kids from Queens and Brooklyn and even Staten Island. So again, we made the proposal, but it would be up to the DOE to find a space and build this out. So
if you could, I'm sorry for interrupting. If you could appraise us where it is in the process and at what point our voice could be helpful, because this is something that would be very beneficial, of course, for our communities. And in terms of lobbying, it's like the right time. There's certain times when it's the right time. I don't know how to express that, but yeah.
So what we have is a short proposal to get planning money for next year, meaning that if we get this money, then we'll pull you in and on the planning stage, and try to open this in 20 next fall, not this fall. The challenge is going to be, again, we want it to be like Co-op Tech with all different trades, a lot of computer trades, the nurse's assistant. So it's a little bit harder to build out a school with auto mechanics and welding and things like that. But we really want, one of the neat things about Co-op Tech, students are students, and they go there thinking they want one thing, and then all of a sudden they say, "Oh, I don't really like this." Well, you got 20 other options. If you go to Brooklyn Automotive and you don't like cars anymore, you're kind of in trouble. So,
Right.
so we'll pull you in. If we get the planning money, we'll pull you into that. That'd be great.
Right, because we are obviously in downtown Brooklyn, transit rich, people can get to our area, and because of the development, the building, and this is my opinion, overbuilding, but sometimes developers want to do a community facility or a school.
Yeah.
And I know that in the past, developers have sometimes reached out to the district office.
Yep.
So we would like to continue that dialogue.
Yeah. That's exactly what's happening in East Harlem. They're building us a new Co-op Tech up there, but on top of it is a big condo. So that was the agreement, right? They bought the whole city block, and they're putting up a new school for us, but they're also putting up these big condos.
Mm-hmm. And I have another question. Okay, so the CTEs aren't really under your auspices other than the Co-op Tech, but I know that some of the transfer schools, well, maybe all of them, but at least some of them have the Learning to Work program, where they get, it's like an internship where they get some funding. So where do these programs stand? Are students still able to get those type of positions, if you will, so that they can earn, a small amount of money for their family, and maybe not cut out because they're making a little bit of money?
Yeah. Again, the internship program is great. It's minimum wage, which is tremendous. We've been getting $15 an hour for the students for a couple of years, and we have a series of what we call adaptive leadership during the pandemic, and how people were getting students internships during this time where they couldn't do a lot of the ones like Co-op Tech I mentioned before. They're in the Parks Department. They're in sanitation garages, working on the trucks, things like that. So a lot of it was done virtually. So a lot of schools did some very creative stuff to make sure their students were still getting internship money. A lot of it was school-based. We kind of prefer them to be out in the community and really getting the feel for, being on time and working for someone else outside of the supervision of a school. But because of the pandemic, we have a lot of more school-based internship opportunities. So again, we keep track of, the most important thing to me is to make sure money is going to this student's pocket. So on our report card of our principals, it has how much money was earned each semester compared to last year and the year before. We can see where the trends are. We also want to make sure that the internships go to all students. When we started the internship program, it seemed like the top students, general ed students, were getting all the internships. And then we said, no, if this school is 30% students with disabilities, 30% of the internships should go to those students. And the same thing with multi-language learners. We actually hired somebody to get multi-language learners internships in places that they were comfortable. So I'm really proud of the internship program throughout transfer schools and the Learn to Work program, and in District 79. It's great all the way around experience. And last year, last time we were in school, many of those internships in Co-op Tech led to full-time employment, and that's really the end goal there, right? Is not only them making money while they're in school, but then leading to employment.
Thank you. Are there other questions from members of the committee or members of the board?
I believe Sam Johnson had her hand up.
Sam, take it
And
away.
Nick Ferreira.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Hussain, for this wonderful presentation. I have a question in regards to District 75 schools that you mentioned and Access VR. How many, if you know, how many students are you aware of that are utilizing the Access VR program now in this past year? Or have you seen an uptick in the transition of, interest of young people transitioning into Access VR programming and rehabilitation services? Or have you seen it kind of dwindle and just kind of, stable?
Yeah, that's a great question. To be honest with you, I don't know. I haven't looked into that. I know that I'm really proud that, Access VR, we kind of had to build relationships in every borough. So, a lot of it was, so we've built relationships now with in every borough for the students aging out. And that's a good question. Whether or not how that's worked this year, I don't really know. But I'll look into that. That's really interesting. One of the things that I kind of skipped over my presentation is I'm trying to get some funding for young adults and programs that go 16 to 24. We love to keep students with disabilities and multi-language learners who are new to the country, give them a couple more years past the age of 21. Now, I know it's a funding issue, right? But it can be done. I've asked state ed to come up with a grant. When I was principal, there was a grant called Emerging Workers, and it covered those ages from 16 to 24. A lot of our CBO partners serve students up to 24. And I think the school system should really have continued services for those groups. With IDEA, they never raised that upper level from 21. And I don't know if they ever will because it's expensive, but I know that. But you know how it is when a student leaves and goes into adult ed at 22, they don't get any of those services that are on IE anymore, right? And I'd like to see that continued at least for a couple more years. So we're working on some innovative programs for what we're calling young adults, up to the age of 24, as opposed to older newcomers.
Thank you. Nick, did you have a question?
Yeah. Hi. Good evening. Hi, Dr. Lasante.
Hi.
Work with you. Work at the Child Center of New York. So we lead the Flushing YABC and aspirations. So I was just curious if there's anything we could be doing. I was a little surprised to hear you say money was okay on the advocacy front, as the transfer schools and YABCs are taking a massive hit. And you brought up the I guess the internships and the amount of internships folks can provide as a metric of success. And so I guess just full disclosure as a provider, that's a tough call because we make choices about funding internships or funding humans to actually work with the kids, right? And it's always those competing priorities of where's the money needed more. So is there anything we can do with that? Because I just, as a CBO, we don't feel like we're okay with funding.
Yeah, I know. The learn to work is, the timing of this is ridiculous. The cuts. So one thing I offered a couple of times was, again, Co-op Tech has a lot of internship money. So I said we could help there. So in other words, if there's a partnership with Co-op Tech and with D79, we have some programs that we could help pay for the internships of some of the transfer schools, because we hate for them to lose their money, and of course we don't want to lose the services of the professionals that support them and just such great work. So we just had a meeting with the Learn to Work. Again, unfortunately, that's out of our hands. That's City Hall decision. I'm really worried about September for the Learn to Work because again, nobody's said that money's going to be restored or somehow we're going to have to make it up as best we can within District 79. Again, the transfer schools are formula driven, so they don't really have that much to support personnel or the internships. So again, that's a big point, and I'm so disappointed, because we've been partners who Learn to Work for many years, and they do great work, and they really connect with our students, especially now, right during this whole remote learning phase. But again, this was not our decision to do that. So that is, to your point, the one area of funding that has hit us hard is the reduction to the Learn to Work program.
Thank you. I wanted to get back to the executive summary that I think went out to everyone about this disconnected youth task force. And if it hasn't gone out, we can send it out again. And the recommendations, of course, include funding, flexible and holistic approaches, emphasis on school and work-based career paths. These are things that we've talked about, more collaboration with the partners, but they're talking about that the city should centralize and specify the responsibility for the out-of-school, out-of-work policy within a single city government office. Dr. Lasante talked very much so about the programs in the Department of Education, but there are other city departments as well as nonprofits and other CBOs. So if you can just talk a moment, Dr. Lasante, to your thinking about, it's about breaking down silos. So
yeah.
If you could talk kind of on that level of what
I think
needs to happen.
Yeah, I think one of the big things on that level is the interagency communication, right? Again, DYCD funds a lot of programs, and periodically we'll see a program that offers the high school equivalency. And I said, we do that in 88 sites right now. So why, have a community-based organization do that piece? We can do that piece. And pay for the counselors or the support staff or social emotional learning pieces, through DYCD. So I think one of the things we have to do is work better as interagencies. Again, CUNY, there's some replicated programs in CUNY, and also with SUNY. SUNY's got some great programs too. So rather than kind of competing against each other, I think it's a great idea if we were all under one roof, one agency. They talked about this a while ago with adult education, right? It's hard to do ESL, CTE, high school equivalency, and do all three of those. And what about if somebody got the contract to do a career and technical education, or several people did for adults, and then someone else, CUNY, got the high school equivalency piece, and then we got the English language learner piece. Again, I think that's a place to start, is the interagency, and really tap into the resources of CUNY and SUNY, which comes under, as we know, the governor and the mayor. So that's my take on this. Again, and then bring in the CBOs to really where they have expertise in areas that we don't focus on. Like I said before, I think we should be really focusing on getting the high school equivalency and getting the high school diplomas, and then the wraparound services. I think the community-based organizations, quite frankly, have expertise in that, right, and working with families and communities to support the well-rounded education of the students.
Thank you. I want to move the meeting along, but I also want to make sure all of our members got to ask any questions. Can you see if there are other members who want to ask a question?
I see no other hands, Chair Flybush.
Okay, so Dr. Lasante, we would like to continue this conversation, and maybe I know that economic development, I know that some of our other committees might be interested as well from their perspective, maybe not the DOE, but the other agencies that are part of this task force on the students that are out of school and out of work, because that's a significant challenge in our communities, which is probably worsening with the COVID situation.
Sure.
So again, I thank you, and please stay in touch, and we'll be in touch with you. So
Yes, look forward. Thank you so much.
Okay. And you can stay on if you'd like, or not, whatever you think is best for you and your schedule. We're not
All right.
taking you out of the meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. So next on this agenda, we are going to talk very briefly. I believe you got in the email, committee members, the Citywide Council on High Schools document. Did people get a chance to read that? It's a resolution to expand access to internet access for all. And we've talked about that these children not only need the iPad or the tablet and so on, but they need the connectivity. And we're talking about dropouts and students that are not succeeding, and we know that that could be one of the reasons why. So rather than discuss it, unless you guys want to discuss it, I wonder if we could have a motion to support the resolution to expand access to internet access for all. And in addition to the Citywide Council on High Schools writing this, there is support from the Chancellor's Parent Advisory Council for this resolution. And they've gone out to all the community boards to support this resolution. So are there questions about this, or a motion, or how should we proceed?
I would love to make a motion to wholeheartedly support this.
Okay, you made the motion. Great. Is there a second?
I second.
Who's, I didn't see. Is that Meredith?
Santia.
Santia. Hi, Santia. Okay. Okay, so
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
How are they going to do city-wide? How are they going to support this, the internet for everyone? How are they going to do that? Is that in the plans?
Okay, let me look at some of these details. I don't think they talked about, specifically where they're getting the money or who's going to do what, but it's saying resolved that the city expedite the implementation of the New York City Internet Master Plan. So that's the plan that is out there, I believe. And the city must prioritize installation of high-speed broadband in public housing and in low-income neighborhoods. And we've talked about this in some of our other meetings as well. And it says that the DOE investigate connectivity issues that the DOE Tech Division hasn't found a solution for, renegotiate free internet subscriptions for the remainder of the school year, including the summer, because students aren't able to complete their work. I mean, we're going to have more dropouts.
Is this basically a plan to look into these various areas? That's what it's. Well, I know the first one is a plan. The internet all over. That sounds like a plan. The others are proposals. I guess that they want to try and do, because I know they've talked about it before, like the free internet things tonight and things like that. I know it's not that I'm disagreeing with this, but I like to ask questions. I just feel that, before we just vote on something, we need to have a little bit more understanding as to what it is and how it can be done. And if it even, if it's realistic. So that's all. I think I've had, my questions are answered. Thank you.
Okay. So we can have a vote, and then depending on the vote, we can bring it to the full board. And I think in this type of resolution, it's a question showing, like throughout the city, if a lot of boards sign on to this, it just gives more power to the request. So we had a motion and a second. Can I have a vote? How many people agree with this resolution? Can we count? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then do we have people? Oh, I don't see, Nick is raising his hand. And what about Sam? I don't see Sam or Santia.
Tia said something in the chat. She said yes in the chat.
Okay. Good. So that is.
Sam
Are there
Johnson
any
also
no's?
says yes.
Who said yes? What did you say?
Sam Johnson also says yes.
Good. So is that 8-0 to 0? We have 8 people tonight. Well, we can check the attendance. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we have 8 members tonight. So thank you, all 8 people. Thank you. Okay, so for our last item of discussion, we were given the preliminary budget register, which we do each year when we make our recommendations on the various items and everybody votes. And then we get the agency responses, which I'm going to say editorially were very disappointing. Some of the requests they said, part was funded, part wasn't, you don't know, or they'll say, discuss it with your council member, or approval depends on sufficient funding from the federal level. So the ones that have to do with our committee, extending library hours, enhancing and expanding the programs, we always ask for this usually, and it's approval of this request depends on sufficient federal and state funds. So we know that's true. I think we have. Do we push back on this? The district office, and maybe Taya, you can help us out with this. Does the district office collect all of our responses and then send a response?
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, I was muted. This is simply the register of the community board priorities that were submitted in October. The second page of the document that was shared is what I'm projecting right now, and this outlines the timeline from here. So the next important milestone will be in May when the public hearings are held on the executive budget.
Mm-hmm. So I thought we were responding to the response.
So this isn't a response, this is just a register.
Okay, so we'll just bring it to the committee that basically the library depends on federal and state funds, and increasing resources for youth crime prevention. That was cited that the responsible agency would be the police department, and they said that was not in the city's budget jurisdiction. I don't understand how, because the police is within the city, so I don't get that, but
Betty, this is Meredith. What should I be noting here?
I think there was discussion about the items in the expense budget, and
You want me to list the specific items or just?
I don't think so. I mean, we don't have to make a resolution.
Okay.
And then I have another piece of paper with the expense. So that was the programmatic part. Did people have a chance to go through this? It really was rather disappointing.
Couldn't get access to it.
Can you send it out again, Taya? On the expense part, item 8 was the DYCD. and we wanted more programs and better funding. And they said that it's put out to bid and then the programs are chosen. But I think we wanted more, that the programs be more robustly funded. So that wasn't a good response. And then there was another item about the library, which again said the state and federal funding. So you can just say, Meredith, that we discussed the funds to the preliminary budget register. Okay. Now is the chair's report. So I really wanted to thank every member of the committee. You put in extra time and a lot of angst about the statutes and that whole discussion. You spent more evenings on meetings, and you know it's appreciated. Now the Parks Committee said they wanted to continue some of the discussion about the statutes and maybe the renaming parks. So I just want to know, are people interested in participating as a joint committee, or just if you're interested, you would go to the meeting? I mean, what do people think?
I think maybe a joint committee sounds good. It definitely seems to be a cultural issue.
Mm-hmm. Are there other opinions or? No, okay.
Yeah, definitely would. I would agree about being involved with any other further.
Okay, so I mean, the office and I'll let Barbara know that if they decide to have a further discussion and it's clear what we're discussing, that maybe we can have a joint committee on that. Some of you might have read in the media that Corey Johnson came out with a City Council Intro 2186, which has to do with creating a 10-year comprehensive planning process to connect the city, the budget, the land use planning, and planning in a coherent way. And in a lot of community advocacy groups, people are saying, well, it's going to cut out the community more, or it's going to create a planning czar. Like I read something, someone said it's going to be another Robert Moses, but we don't know that. That's a lot of hearsay. So I'm suggesting that people read the document or the summaries because it will be discussed probably on the full board level and in committees, and we'll have an opportunity to comment at some time. They were very lively hearings apparently this week. So that's something that should be on our radar. The other thing that should be on our radar is that the HESH committee, Brandon Smith's committee, is very interested in childhood asthma and would like to either have a joint committee meeting with us or come to our meeting, or we would go to their meeting to discuss childhood asthma and see if there are programs or strategies that we could advocate for collectively. So I did a little research on this because some schools throughout the city have what's called a school-based health clinic, where there are doctors, nurses, sometimes dentists, nutritionists, other health providers in a school building, so that students don't have to be absent in order to get their health care. And I discovered that in our district, we have Brooklyn Plaza Medical Group at Benjamin Banneker High School, and we have Downstate Medical Center at PS 38, which is on Pacific Street in District 15. And we don't have any school-based health clinics in the District 13 elementary and middle schools. So that might be something that we want to take up with the HESH committee and with the district superintendents to see if there's any way we can collaborate on bringing asthma care to students in our communities. Are there any questions about that? Comments? No? Okay. Okay, so that concludes my chair's report. Are there any committee members who want to bring up any new business, old business, anything to share from our committee members? Well, Oscar, next month you'll have to tell us where you're going to college, but we can do that, I guess, in April. Okay, so there's no business. Is there anyone here from the community who would like to talk to us and share anything? Ms. Mantrone, do you want to talk about the library or no?
Sure. I can talk about it. I came because I was interested in hearing about the schools.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to know what's going on because we're not really doing a lot of physical outreach these days. Right now, Clinton Hill has lobby service, so you can pick up and drop off. Later on, possibly in April, we're going to be getting outside seating for outside of the building. So people will be able to sit outside at chairs and tables. And they also are going to be extending our Wi-Fi, which is kind of timely in terms of what he was talking about today. So hopefully in about mid-March, they're going to extend it so that the signal is going to be about 300 yards. So people will have a much easier time getting free Wi-Fi from us. And then when we get the tables and chairs outside, they'll be able to sit down there and use them. We're also doing a lot of virtual programs. We're going to have the March virtual programs out soon. We're doing some for teenagers in March where we're having cartoonists talk about how they create as well as creating live. And then we're going to be doing some April programs with how to write music lyrics for teens also. So we'll have those up in a couple of days on our website.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the community who would like to share something about their program or ask us any questions? Okay. Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn? I have to write down.
Make a motion to adjourn. Dorothea, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Who seconded? Santia?
Sam.
Sam. Okay, thank you. So have a good few weeks. I guess we'll see you all in the full meeting. And hopefully it'll be on Zoom. And yeah, take care, be well. Thank you.
Betty, thanks everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.